Well, folks, it's Kiss Shorty Gaming Nation in the building. Going live here on this beautiful afternoon. It's very beautiful outside today, so I'm gonna be streaming outside. Took off my virtual background and here to discuss some things. You know, a lot of modern men today. Well, before I get into that, I gotta say this: stop going into my comment section trying to post about how you trying to scam me and scam other people in the chat. First of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to block your tweet, your text, or your comment. I'm just going to block it so nobody's going to be able to see it. Like, share, and donate to my page if you like my content. But don't go into my comment section posting whatever you trying to scam. I'm getting sick of bitch niggas like that. This is what happens when masculinity is gone, or there's no more manhood or man codes around. You see what I'm saying? People feel free to disrespect you in the chat, knowing that if it was you was in real life, you tried to scam somebody in real life, you get your ass whooped and get beat down. All right, but that's what it is in today's day. Don't go into my comment section and posting whatever fuck shit you was trying to scam. Manhood and masculinity is in dire straits in 2025, and I think it's going to be this way for a long time. And the reason why I say that is because you have men that will shame other men psychologically to lower their standards to pick certain type of women, so that certain type of woman can continue to be in supply. Like I said, stop conditioning men to love 304. Just submit you do, so you can keep them in supply, right? What I mean is that you got men in these spaces, modern men in these spaces, terraforming men, and then shaming the traditional men, right, from setting standards that promote traditional women. Why is that? Because now if you are shaming the traditional men, and because of the feminist programming that looks at traditional men as something bad or negative, those men, the women will not look at those traditional men as somebody valuable to follow or want to be with. That's what you call dirty macking. Dirty macking is where one man is going to bash or discredit the other man in the attempt to make himself look better, or to discredit him in the eyes of the women, so that women don't pick him. That's dirty macking. So that's what a lot of modern men do in these spaces, right? And that's not masculinity, right? If you want to advertise to other men that 304s is the best option, you honestly say, hey, look, I'm dating coach so-and-so, or I'm this and that so-and-so, and I'm advertising you the 304. And I'm going to show you the game and the levels of the 304. And this is best option for you, in my opinion, right? And that's pretty much it. And then package that to you that way, right? But what those men, instead of them just straight up doing that, what they do is now they try to convince you that all women are 304s. They try to convince you that every chick you see out here is a 304, and there's no differentiation. There's no difference between them and a good woman and a housewife and a traditional woman. Or they'll play with the wifey material thing and be subjective with wifey material, right? We know that there's a base standard for what a man is, and we know what a base standard for what a wife is, right? So rather than saying that, a good wife to me is a 304, they'll say, well, what's wifey material? Wifey material could be what you describe it. No. Wifey material has to be objective, especially if you're in a traditional society. In a traditional society, wifey material has to go along with to fit the traditional environment of those men that the men are leading. You can't just play with, well, my version of a wifey material is this, and the third. No. And wifey material is based upon what the core traits of a woman is. She's nurturing, she's submissive, she's kind, right? These are natural traits of a woman. Right? She follows men. See what I'm saying? But what dudes do is that they play with what's a good dude and they play with what's a wifey material. And the reason why they keep it in subjectivity instead of objective, subjectivity can be based upon opinions and not really facts. And you can swap them around at will. All right. So now if a woman gets into a situation with a good dude and she was bad to that good dude, she could change around the definition of what a good dude. So say a good dude is somebody that protects, provides. Say a good dude is somebody that works, that is a traditional guy, right? And that traditional dude was a good man to that woman. And she cheats on that dude, she disrespects that dude, she disobeys that dude's instructions. Now, if that man goes to the internet and says, well, I was a good dude and this woman still disrespected me, instead of society and the internet and certain dudes or modern men on YouTube saying, well, that woman was in the wrong, what they'll do is they say that man is in the wrong, right? And they'll say it based upon what that woman thinks is a good man, right? So she'll say, well, a good man to me is somebody that a good man to me is somebody with good dick game, right? And because even though this good man, he was protecting, he was providing, he was a traditional dude, he didn't have good dick game. So that's why I cheated. They can be subjective like that. When the argument is, well, you knew he didn't have good dick game from the beginning, so why did you get into a relationship with him? And then they'll switch around and change that around to fit the shoe because it's subjective, right? And then I also notice in these spaces, whenever the traditional guy jumps up there and he says, I don't want a promiscuous woman, right? Other groups of modern men will jump up there and say, well, you can't get a promiscuous woman because all women are out here promiscuous. How the fuck does he know that? How does he know that all women are out here being promiscuous? See what I'm saying? And then he'll psychologically shame those dudes and say you're insecure or your leadership is not secure enough, or that basic, feminist female manipulation tactic. See, what a man is secured in knowing who and what he can lead and what he cannot lead. And he knows what he wants for himself or what he don't want for himself. That's a secure man. So if you know himself that a 304 is not the best type of woman for him, why would he pick that? And why would he allow other people to tell him he's not strong enough in his masculinity to get into a relationship with him when he knows that's something that's bad for him? The truth within inside of him knows that a 304 is not something good for him. Right? Because guess what? Just like not every woman is the same, not every man is the same. You understand? And guess what? Most men in society are traditional dudes. The problem is now, because of feminism now, a lot of women put themselves disqualified themselves from a traditional relationship, right? Because women follow trends and they're followers. So now if feminism comes along and tell you, go out there and be sexually liberated, a lot of women are going to follow that. And the problem is that a lot of women in society now who are not really 304s according to their spirit and the nature of them, they fell into that trap. And now they're coming back to the men and saying, you should accept me. And the men have the right to say, well, no, you chose to listen to the serpent in the garden tell you to rebel against me. The consequence for that for you is now you don't get a relationship from a traditional dude. And the men have a right to say that. But now you have modern men now that are getting on the YouTube who are into 304 culture and hookup culture, shaming other men psychologically. And I'm going to show you some of the psychological games they play into accepting the 304, even though he knows in himself that's not for him. By the way, like, share, and subscribe to the content. This is Kishati Gaming Nation, right? So now, rather the guys say we're into hookup culture and we're into 304s and this is what we promote, we turn women into sluts and 304s, they won't come out and say that, because guess what? The traditional men in the society will figure out who's creating the problem. The people who are creating the problem or the poison in the dating market are the guys that are engaging with every woman, whether she's a lady, whether she's a good woman, whether she's a 304. They're engaging with every woman like they're 304. So they're creating the problem, right? They're creating the problem of, or the supply of all these 304s into the dating market, into the dating game, right? So now when the traditional male comes out now, he's looking for a traditional woman. He cannot find it because there's so many 304s in the market. So what the guys in the sex culture and the hookup culture are trying to do is they're trying to terraform you men into being open relationships, into sex culture, right? Not really for the benefit of you yourself, but for the benefit of them. So now if they could turn the entire landscape into open relationships now, right? Open relationships and this, that, and the third, they could keep the supply of sex culture. They could keep the supply of open relationship. In other words, they could fuck your bitch and you wouldn't mind. And most men, how we're wired, we're territorial. We're like the image of the Most High. The Most High in the Bible is territorial, and that's how we are, right? So they're trying to terraform you guys into accepting that nature, that type of shit. The problem was that, regardless of technology is, and say technology is going to get better 100 years down the line. We're not 100 years down the line yet, right? All this promiscuous sex with all this different medications and what you call these different STD drugs and STD medications and birth control, women are still contracting HIV and STDs. And there's STDs that condoms cannot prevent you from getting. So the condoms might protect you from HIV or might protect you from certain chlamydia and stuff, whatever. But she can still catch hepatitis. What's that shit? That cortisol you get on your lips, like hepatitis and shit like that. And with women, because their reproductive organs are internal, that shit grows. The STD grows in their stomach. It grows in their body. And a lot of times the STD doesn't show itself until months later. That's a problem. That's why the men had such a back in the day during the Victorian age and before that had were being controlling of the woman's sex reproduction organs, because it wasn't something to oppress them or to stop them from being promiscuous. It was that there was a drastic negative effect when they engage into that type of life, and we see it today. The STD rate is highest amongst the women, not the men. So there's a consequence for that. And we know of empires prior to this one, because this is an empire that fell because of sex culture, open relationships, and all that other, this, that, and the third. We've seen that. Roman Empire, Greeks, all of them. A lot of empires are not here on this earth no more because of what? Sex culture. Promiscuous sex. And some of y'all saying, but didn't you engage with? Yeah, I did. In my 20s. I did engage. But like many men in black culture, we didn't know any better. We didn't know. And then in my 20s, it was Player Pimp Mac 304. That's the other problem with black culture, right? In black culture, there were women in the culture that were opting out of being traditionalism, using the fact that black men were not making the patriarchal money that they needed, which was bullshit on their end. It was just an excuse for them to say, we're not going to follow your lead. So they was using the white man standard because they thought that black men were not going to achieve that standard. See what I'm saying? That's why it's goofy in these arguments where they say, black men need to be doing this, that, and the third so that women will follow you. Well, black men in the past 25 years have improved drastically. Black men now are making more money than ever in this day and age than ever before. And black women are still doing what? 304ism. They're still engaged in the hookup culture. They're still being out of line. So it's not the men. If black men are willing to improve themselves and step their game up, but black women are still in decline with their behavior, it's not the brothers. Anyway, let me begin with this clip right here.
And how old are you?
I'm 21.
Why haven't you? And how old are you, a virgin?
Mind you, you had niggas on the internet shaming this woman. They were saying that one of the title of the video was "Why are modern men obsessed with virgins?" The thing is that modern men today, they're more obsessed with 304s than they are with virgins. So that's a incorrection. Traditional men who want to build a legacy and a family, they're supposed to be obsessed with virgins. They're supposed to be obsessed with women who are not promiscuous. Because that's how traditional relationships started in the Victorian age. That type of monogamous situation is the foundation to why America and our population have been so successful. So why are we shaming men for being traditional? Nah, it's you modern men who are trying to shame traditional men into sex culture activity that are the problem.
Virgin?
Yes.
And how old are you?
I'm 21.
Why haven't you done the deed yet?
The key to a strong society is family. And so, in my view, choosing my future husband is like the most important decision I'll ever make. And I'm somebody that I know my heart, and I know that I fall really hard when I meet somebody. So I want to retain some level of objectivity when I'm selecting a future partner. And I know that if I had sex with them, I would be completely imprinted on them. And instead of being like, okay, is this person, do they have the qualities that I'm looking for in a husband, or am I just making it work?
Is there any reason why you're dressed so modestly instead of revealing like most women tend to do when they come out to Miami?
It's respectful to others and to my future partner, and to myself, to just cover myself up more. I know that I, take care of myself. I'm pretty athletic, but I don't need to have that on display.
No. Everything she said was correct. That's how a traditional woman is supposed to speak. Now, the argument niggas is making is that she's repeating red pill talking points. When in reality, these are traditional talking points. See, what niggas is doing, they know that the red pill space has become like a negative. It's become like a negative thing to, I guess, the gynocracy that we're in today. And truth be told, there's a section of the red pill that have been like red pill rage that are extreme. But those talking points don't belong to red pill. The talking points she said, they belong to a more traditional society. If she was in the Victorian age, she'd fit right in. She'd be perfect. Fuck the Victorian age. If she was in like, say, the old Western days, like cowboys and shit days, she'd fit right in. She'd be perfect. Now, niggas is saying she's just repeating what the men say. She's just saying what the men want to hear. My thing is, a woman is supposed to be the reflection of how the men are leading in society. So if the men in society are saying traditional women this and this is what we expect of our women, is not the woman supposed to meet the expectations of the men and become that direct reflection of him? So how is she just repeating what the men are saying? She's supposed to become what the men are saying. If she's becoming what the men are saying, that means she's agreeable to their influence. But the reason why modern men today have a problem with her is because if a traditional man gets into a relationship with this type of woman and they create a structured family, right? And she stays with that man. This is why they shame Anton Downings a lot of times, right? That's going to become the influence that inspires other women and inspires other men to be more traditional. And what that's going to do is it's going to take away the current modern day dating shit that the market that we're in, where it's 304s all around, smash and bash, smash, pass, and dash. So now this becomes the golden standard of society now. It's now going to put things back into tradition. And the access to sex culture and open relationship and box, in my opinion, I think a lot of the dual modern men who have gotten addicted to it to to it. I think they believe they're not going to benefit from it. Like they believe that the 304 economy is going to dry up. Now, if they would just come out and straightforward push and say, "Yo, we push 304ism. This is what we push. We turn ladies into hoes, and we only go after women who will present themselves as a hoe." But they don't do that. They want to go after every woman. Yeah, I'm doing it. Since niggas want to dirty Mac on traditional niggas and traditionalism, I'm doing it now. A lot of these guys on the internet that are into sex culture, hookup culture, they want to terraform all you women into hoes. And the only way for them to get to y'all to do that is that they gotta condition the men to accept hoes. So they use a lot of the same feminist shaming tactics. And see, a lot of the dudes, they didn't shame this chick directly. Because if they shamed this chick directly and said that there was something wrong with her, it would go against their it would expose themselves for who they are, and it would go against what they're preaching. What they're preaching is it's always the man's fault, and what it goes against them doing is that they don't hold women accountable, and they'll expose that they're holding their women accountable to being a 304. Instead of saying, "Yo, we like 304s and we turn women into 304s," and we want to turn all the women into 304s, but they can't say that because they would expose themselves as being the problem. Which should be no different than the pickup artists that lie to bitches. They'd be no different. Right? I was going to say something, but my ADHD kicked it out my brain. Oh my goodness. Let me replay this video.
Are you a virgin?
Yes.
How old are you?
I know what I was going to say. So rather than those guys say, "Okay, cool," because the premise of the argument is that she's just saying what the guys want to hear. And that's a valid point. You got a lot of women on these YouTube spaces and in real life who are what I call the Seraphina virus, or you would want to call them the chameleons, right? They say, or they call them a grifter. They say they saying what the men want to hear, but the actions say something different. So, example, a woman would say all the traditional shit that she wants to say that the men want to hear, but then come to find out she's a whole 304 or she was a feminist in disguise. You see what I'm saying? But the thing is that not all women are like that. There are plenty of women like this lady right here that are in real life. Plenty of them. The problem is that a lot of those ladies, they have no idea or they don't have the art on how to get into a relationship with a traditional dude. And instead of giving her the game and then giving the men the game on how to vet to see if this woman is who she says she is or if she's just pretending, they want to say that, "Oh, you men are weird for liking this type of woman." The thing is with women, right? You have to watch what a woman does, and you have to what's the saying go? Watch what she does, not what she say. And see what with women, you have to vet to see if what they say aligns to what they do, or what they do aligns to what they say. So if you come across hundreds of women like this, you have to vet all of them to see if this is who they say they are, right? And then now you have to teach these type of women who are actually like this what they got to do to stand out from the 304 and the hookup culture chick and the bad chick. You got to teach them what to do, right? Now, I would tell this chick right here, if you really are traditional and this is the route you're going into, your actions has to line up with what you're saying. If you expect a dude to wait until marriage to get your box from you or get you sex from you or whatever, you have to prove to that dude that you're worthy of that. Okay, how many recipes can you cook? You see what I'm saying? Do you follow instructions? You see what I'm saying? Are you consistent with that? You see what I'm saying? Or can you help the nigga with his finances? Are you feminine? Do you learn how to be? And then now, when it comes to men and leadership, now you have to follow that man's leadership, regardless of where he go. Whether he say yes, whether he say no, and he's not there to become what you want him to be. He's there to become what he sees himself as to be, and your job is to be his helpmate to that. So that's the advice I give this young lady right here. If this is who you truly are, right? And for the fellas, if you do get a chick like this, you have to treat this chick with respect, bro. Especially, like, a lot of things I disagree with the red pill. What they don't realize that Neo in the Matrix, he had a girlfriend called Trinity. While he was awoke, but he had a girlfriend called Trinity. I think a lot of the characters in that Matrix movie that was on the Nebuchadnezzar, a lot of them had women. A lot of them had wives. A lot of them had Neo had a girlfriend. Who else had a wife? Somebody else on Locke, he had a wife. He had a wife and kids. The other brother, the light-skinned brother that was on there, he had a wife and kid and some kids. Most of Zion in the Matrix, they were red pill and woke, but they had families. You see what I'm saying? This is what I disagree with the red pill, right? So a lot of you dudes, when you get a woman like this, on top of you being a leader or whatsoever, and you're leading and you're on your purpose, you got to treat a woman like this that's respecting you and how you want to lead correctly. You got to treat her properly. Because right now, a woman like this is they're not plenty. They're plenty, but it's like they're afraid to show themselves. See what I'm saying? And every time when those men do show themselves to value this type of chick, they get shamed by the sex culture niggas. And we're gonna go into that, right? So I'm gonna introduce y'all to this character right here. Silk. I call this brother, this character is called by the Silk. He's a Trojan horse of feminized masculinity. Some of y'all might recognize him as Derek Jackson. Y'all Awakening and a couple other cats that are on YouTube. Even Dr. Umar Johnson is a different variant. I'm going to create a Dr. Umar Johnson variant. But this character, he aligns more with Derek Jackson. He aligns more with, I forgot that other nigga. He's on tonight's, a couple of them on tonight's conversation, right? Silk, Trojan horse of feminized masculinity. Silk presents what he really does. Appearance, stylish. So that's how he appears. Don't Derek Jackson, ain't that his style? Articulate, confident, seductive, subversive, passive message, right? That's how what's this nigga name? Derek Jackson come. And a lot of them niggas, right? Disguised femininity and masculinity. Condition men to yield contrast. Oh, so that's the character creation, right? This is his name. Darius Silk Freeman. I gave him like an old nigga name, right? Mount and Polish Game, all them game niggas. Archetype, the Dirty Mac disruptor. I gave this nigga a whole fucking archetype and shit. Core mission, whether he knows it or not. Undermine traditional black male leadership by keeping hookup culture alive, pushing anti-patriarchal rhetoric under the disguise of game, and shaming traditional men into silence. That's what a lot of the dating coach niggas do? Ain't that what a lot of the game niggas do? All right. Go through here. I gave him a background. Silk came up in the streets, but was always more mouthpiece than muscle. He read a little psychology, watched too many game videos, and built his identity around being the guy who always had women. Don't a lot of niggas do that? Knew how to maneuver and knew female nature. On the surface, he looks like a man who's figured it out. But at his core, he's a threat to traditional order. A lot of you guys that preach open relationships and sex culture and shit, you're a threat to masculine order. The whole reason, the purpose behind monogamy and monogamous traditional relationship was because if one man had access to multiple women at a time, like say Samson, not Samson, what's this nigga in the Bible? Solomon? Yeah, King Solomon. I think King Solomon had 700 wives or 700 concubines. That's 700 men in a society that don't have a wife. And what used to happen in the more barbaric time was that the men that didn't have women, they used to go to other villages, conquer that village, and then rape those women in that village. That's how barbaric times were. So monogamy and traditionalism during the Victorian age was a way for men to say, okay, every man give one wife. And because of capitalism now giving men the opportunity to make money and make resources, every man gets one wife and one woman stick to one man. And that was the order. And guess what? That order has been successful. You know how I know it's been successful? America has become a superpower. China has become a superpower. Japan has become a superpower. Multiple countries have become a superpower because of the monogamous relationship system. Tactics weaponizes buzzwords like insecure, controlling, weak, or beta. Don't niggas on this internet use beta and alpha? You're a beta because you don't like promiscuous women. You're alpha if you like promiscuous women. Or you're a beta if you think this way. Or you're alpha if you don't think this way. Or if you behave this way, you're a beta. Or if you behave that way, you're alpha. What alpha and beta is, right? Alpha is just the most dominant man on the block. Beta is the lesser man on the block. The alpha is the leader of the pack. The beta follow the alpha. The best example of this is watching gorillas or lions, right? Gorilla is the alpha, lion is the alpha. The best example is watching the military, right? You have a general who's the alpha, and then you have lower tiers of alpha. You have the general, the brigadier general, the lieutenant, the sergeant. So you have different lower tiers of alphas, right? And they're leading that group. Now, where it becomes subjective to that society, say you have Saudi Arabia, who's Islamic, and say you have America, that's Christianity. The alpha of Islam is going to push the ideology of Islam. He's going to enforce that. The betas is going to follow that alpha, and that alpha that enforces the ideology of Islam. Christianity, there's going to be alphas of Christianity. They're going to enforce Christianity, and the betas, they're going to follow the ideology of Christianity and the alphas that enforce that ideology. That's what that is. So now, what you see on the internet is that you have alphas who are in sex culture and open relationship pushing the ideology of that versus the alphas who are more traditional and old school pushing the ideology of that. And you're seeing them clash on the internet. You even got Sigmas in the mix, right? And I think from the Sigma's point of view, because you got Sigmas that are for sex culture too, and you got Sigma that's for that's on the internet for traditional relationships. I think with the Sigmas, they're more balanced on the internet, right? They're more, okay, cool. If you niggas over there want to be into sex culture, just say that, right? But don't come over here, shaming traditional niggas who don't want to be into that. You feel me? Seduces with manipulation, not leadership. He uses attention, freedom, and flattery as tools to win women over. Then labels it game. Encourages men to lower standards, telling them, this is the most important part. Encourages men to lower standards, telling them they should accept promiscuous women, that real men can handle her. No. None of y'all niggas know what's a real man. A real man knows the type of woman he wants to deal with and don't want to deal with. That's a real man. Right? Say that you want to deal with them type of women. Right? Portrays structure as weakness. Acts like having standards or expecting monogamy is outdated or corny. Ain't that what a lot of niggas in these spaces push? To y'all that monogamy is outdated or corny? See, the problem wasn't the men setting the monogamy standard. The problem was the women who were never good women to begin with. Right? The problem was the women that disobeyed those standards. That's the problem. Right? Because when you're vetting a chick, right? Like I said with the chick that I showcased to you earlier, you have to vet to see if what they say or what they portray aligns to what they do. And a lot of times, a lot of women, they can play a good game for 2 years, 3 years, and pretend to be something they're not. This is why I don't get mad at brothers that, will wait 10 years before they marry a chick. I don't get mad at them. I understand why they do it. You feel me? At the end of the day, a woman can choose to be in a relationship with a dude or not, too. And she can say, okay, cool. I'm not a traditional chick, so let me leave this traditional man alone. But a lot of them don't do that. They pretend to be something they're not. And there's a reason why they do it. All right. Subtly attacks patriarchy, calls it oppression or religious indoctrination, pushing women to rebel against structure while keeping them sexually available. That's what a lot of niggas do on this YouTube. Catchphrases. You hear these online barbershop talk. You're just insecure, bro. Let her be free. If she's really yours, she'll come back. No. Let her be free and find you another woman. Let her be free to be a hoe. This is what them niggas mean when they say let her be free. Let her be free to walk away from traditionalism. Let her be free to go out there and be a hoe. No, once a chick walks away from you, let her be free to find somebody else. And you be free to find another woman. A real man can handle a woman with a pass. What did I tell you? A real man knows the type of woman he can handle and knows the type of woman he can't handle. You're trying to control her. That's weak. No, it's not weak. It's not weak to control a woman. Why? Because women know because a woman can choose to be controlled by you. And as a man, you're supposed to control your environment and the people that's in it. And then create rules and structure to maintain that control. All right? Game is king, not rules. To them niggas that say that, game has rules. Game is life. And the game of every kingdom is to have rules and structure and guidelines for people to follow. That's the game. Any kingdom without those rules or guidelines to follow, that kingdom is going to go to ruin and chaos. And we've seen many kingdoms fall for that in the past. It's not like I'm just pulling this out of the sky. The Roman Empire fell. The Greeks fell. Numerous empires before the empires we have modern today have fallen because they walked away from their rules and their principles. That's the game. Remember, game, when niggas say game, right, it's life. It's knowledge, information, and wisdom. And you apply that to your everyday life. And when it comes to running a society and men running that society, the game is, as a man, you got to create a system of control and then create rules and reward system to reward the people that follow your rules and punish the people that don't follow your rules. It's like a military. It's like the president of a country. That's the game on that. While pretending to be the ultimate masculine figure, Silk undermines the very essence of masculine responsibility. He doesn't build families. He doesn't protect culture. He doesn't uplift legacy. He spreads confusion by giving men the illusion of control through manipulation while feeding women's worst instinct. What's women's worst instinct? To be promiscuous. Culture impact. Silk types have made it hard for serious black men to lead. They've confused women into thinking leadership is oppression and made men afraid to lead with standards. What do I mean when I say that? If I lead and I say I'm looking for a non-promiscuous woman, I'm looking for a woman that's submissive, cook, and clean, these type of dudes into black culture and black society had made men look like we are like it says they're oppressive, or made us look like we're insecure. So now if I'm a man, right, and I'm speaking to a black woman across the table and I say I'm looking for a woman that's not a 304, automatically the program runs to her brain that I'm insecure. Just the automatic program. When I say program, like it affects how you think. So if I go out there and I'm in a room full of black women, the black woman that I'm in the room full of, none of them could be 304s. But as soon as I say I am not looking for a promiscuous woman, what's going to happen? all the black women in there going to say, what? You're insecure. And mind you, none of these women, and we've seen this before. We've seen women who are good women, and you say, you're not looking for a promiscuous chick. We have seen those women argue back and forth with you. Why you don't want a promiscuous chick? You must be insecure with yourself. Blah, 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 blah. We've seen it. So now, culturally, in black culture, this has made a lot of you black men with those traditional standards afraid to speak that shit and say that. You see it on the balloon pop shows. A lot of the dudes on the balloon pop show, except for Aaron the Plumber. Aaron the Plumber is the only one that was brave enough to say, I don't want a promiscuous chick. He was the only one brave enough. And he got shamed for that. Short-term pleasure in broken families, all while acting like OGs or high value. All right. Silk master manipulation. Accountability camouflage. Tactic name, the mirror shield. Deflect by reflecting. Shine the mirror on the man to avoid spotlighting the women. Don't a lot of niggas in these spaces do that? Every time, I was just on the panel where I was just doing that, on DJ Hamp's show. On the panel, we were talking about what women would need to do to step their game up, and they switched to this is what the black men need to do. And over the past 25 years, black men have stepped up the game. But what often happens, like what on that panel is what we do is like we'll take the black men who are the minority of the community, who are the let's call them the fuck niggas of the community. We'll take the fuck niggas who's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and we'll brush the entire black male population with it and say all black men is doing this. When black women are getting up on YouTube or on any public platform and they're saying we tired of these gangbanging niggas and these fuck niggas and these player type niggas and all these type of niggas, they're talking about all black men. They're not talking about the Pookies and the Rays. They including the niggas that are traditional. They're including the niggas that are not out here being what you call a breeding buck. They're talking about all black men, right? Silk uses the language of masculine honor as a shield to protect the dysfunction he doesn't want. Check, especially from Seraphina's spirit. He weaponizes male accountability against the very men who are doing their job as leaders. Instead of controlling the root of the chaos, rebellious women, anti-patriarchal behavior, breakdown in sexual discipline, Silk flips the script. So what do I mean by that, right? You have plenty of men that are leaders and holding themselves accountable. This is why black men have been improving over the past 25 years. So what Silk does, he said, well, you guys still need to improve. This is why what the Silk type does, like a lot of black men, like a Derek Jackson type, what they'll do is say, well, you niggas still need to improve. You niggas still need to do this, that, and the third. But black men are still improving. Black men are doing the work. They're still improving on themselves. The stats show it. But because they don't want to address the rebellious women who are into sex culture because it doesn't benefit what their intention is, they still hold accountability to the man, even though the men are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Don't worry about what she's doing, bro. Just hold yourself accountable. That's what a lot of them say. On the surface, it sounds like he's preaching discipline, but under the hood is pure distraction, the sleight of hand. He shifts the lens away from the disorder in the women and refocuses it entirely on the men. He acts like holding women accountable is unmanly, when it's actually the core duty of leadership. What do I mean by that? Like a general of an army or military or a president of a United States or a prime minister, at the same time, while you're a prime minister or you're a general of the army, you're doing your duties and your responsibility. You're supposed to set guidelines for the sergeant, the general, and the lieutenants and the privates to follow. And then you have to enforce those standards onto them. If you don't correct that system, especially in the military where you have guns and missiles, they're going to go haywire and do what they want to do. And you're not going to get a strong military. You're going to get chaos. So as leadership, it is your job to hold not only yourself accountable, but hold the people that follow you accountable to the standards that you set for them. I was going to say your standards, but the thing is that the standards I set for myself is not going to be the same standards I set for the general, the sergeant, or me as a man. Why? because my responsibility as a man is different from your responsibility as a woman. So my standards I set for myself is according to me and my biology, while the standards I set for you as a woman is according to you and your biology. And see, that's the thing where it's being said, but it's not, it's the quiet thing being said. Women don't like the fact that they're not the ones setting the rules and the standards, and they want that position. They don't like the fact, but there are women in society that don't like the fact that the men are in charge. And this is why they walk away from the Bible, because a lot of the Bible and Abrahamic religions, it enforces those patriarchal things. And that's what women don't like. And instead of the men of society charging those women to the game, right? Men like Silk, they encourage those type of women. Because one of the things that those type of women do to go against the patriarchal structure and order is promiscuity, sexual liberation. You see what I'm saying? Now, there have always been 304s in society. You go back to the Victorian age, you go back to Spain, you go back all the way back. There've always been prostitutes and 304s in society. The thing is that they were always kept in check, and they was always kept in their place. Example, during the Victorian age, a 304 did not get the access to a traditional relationship. A 304 got the access to a brothel. So in other words, like the people that I posted up into that thumbnail photo I made, those type of women, they did not get access to traditional nigga or a relationship, period. All they got access to, they didn't even get a shine. They didn't get put on camera. They didn't get put on social media. A gentleman of the Victorian age wasn't even supposed to be caught walking down the block with those type of women. If he did, he was socially shamed for it. He teaches that male leadership ends at self-discipline, not community enforcement. Right? As I was saying, yeah, male leadership is self-discipline, but you're supposed to enforce rules in your community. That's the point of being a chief. This is false masculinity. True masculinity protects order. It doesn't just build the castle. It guards the gates. False doctrines that Silk preaches. If you're really a man, you wouldn't even care what she does. You just boss up. First of all, if you're a king of a castle or a king of society, you're supposed to be knowledgeable and aware of what's going on in your kingdom. You can't tell me I'm the leader of something, then tell me I shouldn't care about what these women are doing. Because these women could be doing something that messes up the community. And if it's all gonna be my fault and I'm the head of the house, I gotta pay attention to what they're doing. Now, if what they're doing is interfering with how I want to run the kingdom, I have to now charge them to the game or kick them out of my kingdom or my society. But the intention of Silk is to keep them in society for his own gain. Meanwhile, the house burns. Meanwhile, the community gets destroyed. Which black culture and black community is destroyed. I don't care if it's Jamaican black culture, Haitian black culture, Caribbean black culture. The shit is destroyed. Because these type of men right here shame a lot of you dudes. And see, they're not attacking the older dudes. They're going at your younger niggas, the YNs, because the YNs, especially in black culture, don't like the millennials and the Gen Zs. You didn't grow up with a traditional influence. You grew up with your mama's influence, a feminist Marxist influence. So whatever Silk says is going to fit to your programming, right? And because your environment got nothing but 304s in it now, it would make sense to be like, it would make sense for Silk's game. Because in order for you to manage 304s, you got to be comfortable with a chick that's in an open relationship. You got to be comfortable with sex culture. It's sad. Because the reality of the environment we're in right now is that most women are on Instagram. Most women are showing their ass and walking down the block. Even the so-called good women are doing it. You feel me? And the whole reason why I'm doing this is so that there is a traditional influence, a big one, to counterbalance the pimp and the Mac influence. See, I don't have an issue with men like Silk. Well, hold on. So let me say it like this. In general, I don't have an issue with men like Silk. The only uh, nuanced issue I have with men like Silk is that they're trying to shame traditional men from not being traditional, and try to shame traditional men to be like him and date the women according to how he wants them to date, instead of thus being honest about what he's pushing. Take that from the page. Let's go. How modern men are shamed. How modern men shame traditional men for wanting traditional women. All right, let's go into it. When women says, "I want to be a virgin for my husband," I'm not giving my body to the market. That should be respected, honored, and protected by both men and women. If we had a culture that valued legacy, family, real love, right? If mind you, the women who say, "I want to be a 304" or engage in hookup culture, they're the ones that get most protected in our society today. Pay attention. Lily Phillips got banged by 1,000 niggas. Not just niggas, there's a bunch of crackers in there too, right? She caught STDs, and society still worshipped her. The Hawk 2 bitch. The Hawk 2 bitch. How the Hawk 2 bitch not show a lick of pum? She didn't show no puss. She didn't even show no leg, no feet. Able to kick open her OnlyFans and instantly become a millionaire off of that. But this chick, I bet you if this chick started OnlyFans, or she started some type of account, and she was promoting traditionalism, and she was trying to teach other women how to be traditional, I guarantee she wouldn't get the amount of support that Lily Phillips got and a Hawk 2. How the fuck that happened? How the fuck does Hawk 2 get $1 million, become a millionaire from saying Hawk 2? There's something wrong with you men in society, bro. With you modern men. Something is wrong with y'all, bro. Hawk 2? Anyway. Even the women shame this. Right? So switch up. Men in sex culture attack her and her and traditional men. Why? Because her purity exposes their impurity. Her discipline exposes their lack of control. Right? So a lot of men in these spaces are saying that, you know, the traditional version of woman out here doesn't exist. She's a unicorn, a mythical unicorn. And because these type of women don't exist, I'm gonna go out here and be a sex culture type of nigga. This is how Diddy's got created, right? So now, if there's a chick like this that presents herself in a more pure way, more traditional way, and there are traditional men that value that type of woman, it exposes everybody else's laziness and lack of ability to find the right type of person, right type of woman. And like I said earlier, instead of you dudes who are into sex, because I don't mind you niggas being into sex culture. Just be honest about it, about you promoting. Instead of trying to shame other dudes who like what you like. So they mock her. You're brainwashed, insecure, and repressed. Mock the men who value her. Why y'all so obsessed with virginity? You're scared of competition. Use feminist shame line. The funniest thing is that you still got to compete for the women who are traditional. So now competition means that I have to compete with you in how much in fucking women all day. That's the competition. So now because I want a virgin woman means that I'm scared to compete with you over the hoes. So because I won't compete with you over the hoes now, something is wrong with me. Or maybe you want me to compete over the hoes because the more I compete with you over the hoes, the more hoes is going to be there. Because the hoes are going to be feel more valuable because people are competing for them, which is why we have the problem. Use feminist shame lines. What do you need a virgin for? You insecure. Real men don't care about body count. That's control. A real man gives a fuck about what he want to give the fuck about. That's what a real man is. Real men like what he like. A real man cares about what he care about. He value what he want to value. Even you niggas that value sex culture, y'all are real men too, because that's what you value. My problem is that y'all trying to shame niggas for valuing a virgin or valuing a woman that's pure with herself or traditional. How is it controlling? How is it controlling if the men influence says, yo, we're looking for women who are not promiscuous and who are virgins? What's wrong with that? Especially if that woman says, okay, cool, I'm going to become what you say you want me to be. How is that controlling? Because she's agreeing to being not promiscuous. She's agreeing to being a virgin, to benefit the man. This is what I don't understand. If I'm a traditional guy and I have a traditional influence and I'm pushing it, and there are a bunch of women that want to become that to benefit me, why do you niggas have an issue with it? Or to benefit the men who value traditional, why y'all calling that controlling? If the whole point of the game is for man to influence his woman. So if a man's influence is, I want a traditional woman, and the woman follows that influence to become the benefit of that man or his helpmate, why do you niggas hate that so much? Maybe y'all are the ones who are insecure. Because if you weren't insecure, you wouldn't be shaming niggas out of good women. Feel me? They're not protecting her, they're protecting themselves. Let's be clear. These dudes aren't defending women's freedom. They're defending their own access to sex without standards, commitment without responsibility, and pleasure without accountability. Now, what I mean when I say that, I see a lot of dudes. This is why they agree with women having rosters, right? A lot of dudes who just plan on being a dick nigga or the Johnson giver, they get to smash that chick or get sex from that woman without having to put a ring on her finger, without having to be a protector or provider and all those other things. See, back during this, before feminism, like say, I want to say the greatest generation, the silent generation, and the Victorian age, if you expected sex from that woman and you expected sex from this chick, you expected her to follow you and be submissive to you and obey your instructions. She expected you to be a traditional dude, to protect, provide, and all those other things, which kept a balance. A lot of red pill niggas, y'all would say, no, that's sipping. No, that's a balance. Because remember, she's submitting and following your instructions. So that's of your benefit. How you benefit her is you protect and you provide. You're still following your purpose. You're still being you. You're still being your man. But the benefit in that relationship to her is that you protect her, you provide for her, and all those other good things. Meanwhile, the benefit to you is that she submits, she gives you access to box. The problem in society is that women during the 60s walked away from that social contract. Meanwhile, shaming men to keep up with the social contract. That's not how that's supposed to go. If you're not going to obey your duties of the social contract, I'm going to walk away from it. Now, how does this apply to that? Because a lot of women walk away from that social contract, a lot of dudes who walked away from that social contract recognizes that I don't have to fulfill that part of the social contract. I get to smash and get boxed and then go home and play video games. I get to still smoke weed. I still get to be broke. You see what I'm saying? See, me and men like me, I have no problem getting to the bag and getting to the money and being the best I can be, whether a woman is there or not. You see what I'm saying? But a lot of dudes, a lot of broke niggas, they get to have access to box without having to step their game up to be in a relationship with a woman. As far as financially, as far as resource-wise, as far as a lot of other shit-wise, right? So this is why What I mean when I say sex without standards and commitment without responsibility. All right. And pleasure without accountability. Right. This is why a lot of niggas agree with you dudes becoming stepdaddies because they want to keep getting women pregnant and not having to take care of their responsibility. This is why these dudes agree with abortions, so they can fuck women without condoms and get them pregnant, knowing that the woman's going to go to the abortion clinic. Keep that in mind. If women started saying, "I'm saving myself," no casual sex, no sneaky links, no open relationships, then hookup culture collapses. The only reason why there's a hookup culture for you men to benefit is because of the feminine sexual liberation. And period. If it wasn't for that, none of y'all would be getting pussy. None of us would be getting pussy. They attack men who support the woman's virtue. To cut off her incentive, they want her to feel crazy or unwanted for being pure. For you ladies, don't the men shame y'all when y'all say, for you women out here that are truly saying you are saving yourself for a relationship, or you're not doing casual sex, or the only time you have sex is if you're working towards getting into a relationship, right? don't the dudes shame y'all for that? A lot of the dudes in these spaces shame y'all for being that. Now the thing is about it though, ladies, there are a lot of you ladies who are lying. A lot of you ladies are lying to niggas, saying you're not having sex, meanwhile you have a sneaky link. So that's why the men are saying that. That's why the men are saying, I expect sex on the first date. It's to expose if you're really interested into that person. And a lot of times, if I keep going to the dating market, and I'm currently dating right now, and I talk to 100 women, and all of the women tell me, "Oh, I'm not having sex. I'm saving myself for the right person." They come to find out they were lying to me, but giving their box up to somebody else, meaning they were running game on me, playing me for a sucker. What does that mean? That a lot of the women are doing this. So women, y'all got to take accountability and responsibility for that. See, men, we separated ourselves from the niggas who ain't doing what they supposed to be doing, and the niggas ain't shit. When are you women going to separate from the bitches that ain't shit? All right. The real reason they say you're obsessed with virgins, because deep down they know a woman like that is high value. A woman like that is wifey material. A woman like that makes their own woman look questionable. And most importantly, a man who values that is harder to manipulate. They can guilt him, they can't tempt him. They can't shame him into compromise. So they discredit his standards instead. Right? So if your standard is you don't want a promiscuous chick, they just discredit your standards. Meanwhile, it's cool if you try to discredit them for dating promiscuous women, they'll say why you player shaming or why you player hating. And you're moist if you talk to me or say something to me. Final truth. Shaming men for valuing virginity is like shaming a jeweler for checking diamonds. It's not obsession, it's discernment. If a woman says, I want to give my body to one man, my husband, that's not weakness. That's power, that's legacy, that's loyalty. Why is it power? Because now the woman is saying to herself, I am not going to, when I say it's power, it's not power of control over that man. It's power of saying, I'm not going to go with what current society is saying, and I'm going to stick to following one dude. You know the sacrifice a woman has to give up to stick to one dude? The sacrifice is that now she has to follow his instructions and go wherever he say go. Whether he say jump, sit, get up, eat, cook, we going to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffle, we going to McDonald's. Whatever he say do, she got to follow it. So, and she's helping him build a legacy. And she's being loyal to him, keeping her box to one dude. No matter what he does, no matter if he fails or succeeds, she's with him. And the men who attack that, they're not just mad that they're not invited to that level of intimacy. All right. Now, let me say this, right? Even though the reason why I'm protecting or promoting women who are virgins and women want to engaging to this is because there's not enough men doing it. It's not enough of that being pushed in Black culture, right? And the reason why there's a pimp player 304 culture is because of the 60s when a lot of Black men had to go fight in the Vietnam War and came back fucked up. You feel me? But in reality, and to be realistic, for a lot of dudes, including myself, a lot of women out here are going to have body counts. The question is, were they being promiscuous? Did their body count come from them being a 304, or did their body count come from they were legitimately trying to find a relationship and for whatever reason it didn't work out with the prior dude? So say they was in a relationship with a good dude and they just broke up. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that it's more of the promiscuous 304 chick type. And I'm trying to push the women that are not engaging into that. All right. Oh, remember the accountability trap? And how it's used to manipulate men in the short tradition? There it goes. Accountability is used as a manipulation tactic. In today's culture, when men talk about standards for women, the conversation is quickly flipped. Suddenly it becomes men need to hold themselves accountable, not women. It's a bait and switch. The pressure is always on the men to perform fixed need and sacrifice, while women are absolved of the consequences of their actions. This tactic is designed to shift attention away from problematic women so they remain protected while men are to blame. Accountability becomes a smokescreen, not a mirror. The flawed logic of men who should hold themselves accountable to standards. Some argue men shouldn't worry about what women do, just focus on being the best man you can be. Sounds noble, right? Sounds like discipline, right? But in reality, it's a Trojan horse for chaos. Because if you don't hold women to standards, if you allow full autonomy with no consequences, you're inviting rebellion against the very traditions you're trying to protect. Women are not the same as men, biologically, physiologically, psychologically, or spiritually. Men are builders of structure, women are nurturers inside the structure. If you remove standards from women, the structure collapses. A society without standards for women is a house with no walls, open to every storm. Right? Why do I say that? Because women are easily programmed by trends and outside influences. And like Eve in the garden, something from the outside could easily program her to do something stupid. And guess what happened? Eve fucked it up. All right. Actually, what Adam should have did was checked Eve about, what kind of fruit that this is. You know what I'm saying? Tradition requires standards for both men and women. Tradition is not about oppressing women, it's about creating boundaries where men and women both drive in their natural roles. Men are called to protect, provide, and lead. Women are called to preserve, nurture, respect. If men are held accountable but women are not, you create a system of imbalanced privilege, not partnership. Freedom without accountability breeds anarchy, and anarchy destroys families, communities, and nations. Without standards for women, you don't get a society, you get a playground for chaos. See, when you have men talk about when you have women talk about sexual liberation, women talk about sex walk or slut walk, right? What happens is they're not interested in helping men pass on a legacy. They're interested in being 304s. They're interested in being promiscuous. They're interested in being for the streets, right? They're not looking for tradition. And how do you men create children or build your next legacy if the majority of your women are influenced to be 304s? And then now they're also influenced by taking your children and using the system to weaponize them against you. I gotta think. Don't fall for the accountability trap. If a woman cannot be held to standards, she's not prepared for tradition. Bars. And if a society refuses to hold women accountable, it is unfit for survival. Why does it say that? It's like I said again. Your women are responsible for raising your children. Why is that? Because the men are not always in the house. They're always hunting, they're doing work, they're protecting and providing. So let me break down what Malcolm X said. When you raise a nation, When you raise a woman, you raise a nation, but when you raise a man, you raise an individual. I'm gonna discuss my pushback against that, but I'm gonna discuss what it means, right? First. What it means is that women traditionally raise the children. They traditionally, took care of the children while the man was away from the house. The man would be outside leading the nation, conquering, building, working, providing, right? The women, however, they were home raising the children, influencing the children. But here's the thing. They were supposed to influence the children and raise the children based upon the influence and the structure of the man. Why is that? A baby stays 9 months within that mother's womb. For 9 months. So now that baby has a spiritual, physical connection to that mother. After that baby is born, that baby's spending another 7 years with that mother. Mind you, while she's in the womb, while the baby's in the womb, that baby's eating what the mother eats. He's being influenced by what the mother's being influenced by. They even say that the TV that the woman is watching is also influencing the child. I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe it is. Then after that baby's born, the mother is now the baby's sucking from her titty or her breast for the milk. She's talking to the baby. So the baby is being nurtured by that woman. Now the mother for the first 7 years of that child's life holds a bigger influence than the man, because the man is not there to influence that child. The man is typically outside of the house, right? Now it's when those children, both male or female, become 7 years of age that they go meet the father, right? It's like kind of like lions in the savannah, right? When the cubs get to a certain age, the female lioness will bring out the cubs to the male lion to introduce them to the male lion. And the male lion will sniff them out, all that other good stuff. All right. And then now, if it's so switching back to humans now, right? So if it's a boy, what the men would do is that they'll tear that boy away from that mother's influence and take him out into the wilds or go through his rites of passage with the men, right? And that men will train that boy up to being a man. So that's where the man's influence now comes from, teaching that boy how to be analytical, how to be critical thinking, how to control his emotions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So that's what it means. My only pushback with that is that you're saying that the man is just an individual. If the man is responsible for influencing that woman, protecting, providing, and creating a structure, and then creating a protecting that woman, you're not just raising an individual boy, a boy that's an individual. You're not acknowledging the humanity or the spirit or the God-given creation that God created that man to be. You're just saying he's an individual. And the reason why you're saying he's just an individual because you don't want to acknowledge that his role is to be God or leader or the leader of his household, the leader of his community. That's what your Nation of Islam people don't understand. That's what people don't understand about that quote that Malcolm X was talking about. All right? Man is not just an individual. He's the leader of his household. He's the God of that nation. If you look at Jesus, it's a white Jesus there. This is why it's easier for black women to follow white men than it is for black women to follow black men, because there's a white deity that every time they call on God pops up into their brain. So man is more than just an individual. All right, so let's keep going. The limits of male accountability and the necessity for setting standards for women. Men are responsible for their own autonomy, and only that. As a man, you're supposed to hold yourself accountable. You're supposed to fix yesterday's mistakes. You're supposed to control your discipline, your energy, your leadership, but here's the key. You can only hold yourself accountable for what you control. You can't hold yourself accountable for another adult's free will actions, especially in a system that protects their autonomy from any form of male guidance or correction. Accountability ends where your control ends. So in other words, if you can't control your woman in your society, you can't hold them accountable. But if you can control yourself, you can only hold you accountable. You feel me? Just remember that. Modern society ties men's hands behind their backs. In a democratic, hyper-individualistic society, men are no longer have the necessary tools: social pressure, legal support, moral authority to check bad behavior. Men can't enforce discipline anymore without being called controlling, misogynistic, or abusive. Meanwhile, women are free to engage in behaviors rampant promiscuity, adultery, rebellion, without meaningful consequences. This is why niggas are telling you to be in an open relationship and niggas are telling you to be non-monogamous. So that if the woman you're with commits adultery or cheats on you, you're cool with it. It's not really violating anything. So you just want to be able to fuck your wife or your girl and you not care. And when chaos erupts like higher STD rates, marriage infidelity, outside pregnancies, men still get the blame. If the STDs are highest amongst the women, but not at the same, there's not on the same level or rate as the men, what does that mean? I'll get it if the STD rates were high amongst the men, equal to the women, but it's not. It's highest amongst the women. If a wife cheats and has a baby by another man, the husband is shamed as if he failed her, even though her body, her choice, and her betrayals were her own. You cannot tell me that a woman has her body, her choice, and when she decides to cheat, she decides to betray her man. It's the man's fault instead of her own autonomous fault. This is why they play with what's a good man thing. Because now, if you have a definitive definition of what a good man is, right, and you said a good man is the person that lead, protects, provide, he's traditional, he's responsible, and a woman cheats on that type of dude, you can say, no, well, he wasn't really a good man. And you can still hold the man accountable because you can swap out what's a good man. You can swap out the traits of what's a good man and keep it subjective. Historical context. Standards and consequences were clear. In older eras, like the Victorian age, if a woman broke the marriage bond, she faced public shame, economic loss, and legal divorce. There were real consequences. Women were not treated exactly like men. Both men and women had standards they were expected to meet or suffer the fallout, right? Freedom without consequences is not freedom. It's a license to destroy. If human beings outside of the genders were really free, you'd destroy everything on planet Earth. Equality does not mean identical accountability. Men and women are not the same biologically, psychologically, or spiritually. Therefore, they should not and cannot be held to the same type of standards. But standards must exist for both to maintain order and tradition. Analogy. Just like a general and a private in the army, the general has higher responsibilities. The private has different expectations. Both have standards, or the army collapses. The private is not equal to the general, yet the private is still held to expectations and standards. The expectation is not the same as the general because they both have different responsibilities. Now, the general doesn't have to do what the private, who is lesser than him, is doing for the private to follow the general. Nor can the private check the general for not following standards because he's of lower rank. But modern men, you allow your women to do that. Same with a president and a citizen. Different levels, different duties, but still standards keep the structure intact. You don't need equal accountability, you need appropriate accountability. Let me say that again. You don't need equal accountability, you need appropriate accountability. When you remove standards from women and still burden men with full accountability, you create a lopsided world where men are punished for chaos they can't even control. You can't control women, you can't control the chaos, bro. Simple as that. Do I think women should be free to buy houses, buy land, own guns, go to work, make money? Yes. I believe all of that. However, they should not be free to destroy men's lives. They should not be free to commit murder. They should not be free to commit acts of violence. They should not be free in a relationship to a man to delete or abort his baby without his permission or his say so. They should not be free to commit chaos without consequences. All right. Shit, I don't even have a light on up here. So, let me see something. There go the light. There we go. So, if you niggas like hoes, just say you like hoes, bro. But don't try to condition or shame the rest of us men who don't want to get in relationships with promiscuous women to date the women you like and saying we're insecure because we don't want to abide by what you say you like. Right? That's why, like, you're free to be a player or Mac, or you're free to engage in sex culture and date and get married to women like that. Just funny. Y'all player and pimp niggas. Y'all say a lot of women to be free to be what they want to be, but you want a lot of men to be free to be what they want to be. But if somebody comes with critiques and checks you, you'll say, why you player shaming? But you will love to hold traditional men accountable. Make that motherfucking make sense. Anyway, this is Kish Yardy Gaming Nation.